In this video tutorial, we will go over what the explanation of the menu icons up in the menu bar, as well as creating custom templates for printing. The first icon is what's called our select tool. This pointer allows us to select lines to view information and highlight lines and just general clicking functions. This next one is a measure tool. As we left click on the ruler for the measure tool, we can draw lines and get total distances. The distance is viewed at the very bottom right hand side of the screen. So this line is 551.6 feet long. I can right click to finish. My other measure tool up here is the polygon tool, or to measure areas. So as I start clicking on areas, I can see how many acres, which is again viewed down at the bottom right-hand portion of the screen. Again, I can right-click to finish. The next one is our text tool. This can be used to draw generic text items on your maps, as well as editing different labels. As we left click on our map, a box comes up that we can type in any text that we want to add the label to our map. That was kind of a bad example of seeing how it's right in the middle, but it is right there. To change that, you can hold down with your left mouse button and move that label around. Our next tool is what's called the pan tool. This is just a hand to grab, rotate, and move your map around to view different items. The next one's called the zoom tool. It's my personal favorite and allows you to zoom on very specific areas. So as you left click on the zoom tool, you'll left click in one corner and draw a diagonal line to the opposite corner that you want to zoom into and release. It will zoom to that area. The next one we'll be looking at is the zoom in. This function is just a generic zoom in button. And we have also the generic zoom out button, which allows us to change views. This next one is a very common one you'll use. It's called zoom to layer. So as you click on it, it will make active the displayed layer. It will zoom to the extent of the displayed layer. And the final one is the zoom all. So it will zoom to all the extent of all available layers. The next two options are the show me and the filters. Those you will not be using on a regular basis. When editing lines, we can hit edit layer, which is this pencil button, and it will show us a number of different icons we have. And here's a node edit tool. Actually, I'm going to zoom to my layer. We have a node edit tool. So when we click on a line, each node or point of that line is active, that we can add, edit, delete, or move. So you can see how we can move this line just by clicking on the node. If we want to add additional points, we can right click and left click on add, and it adds some additional points that we can move and edit. If we want to delete a point, we can right click on the point and left click on delete. Again, we have the same measuring tool, text tool. This is our tile line tool, which allows us to draw lines. The third one, this next one over, is our cut line tool. As I select our cut line tool, it will give me the ability to cut lines off at a set point. So I can draw a line that it will intersect other lines. As I left click again, that will finish that line, and I can right click and hit finish. And all those lines will be broken at that intersecting point of that cut line. Here's an example of my select tool. I'll grab my select tool and draw a box around those cutoff points, and I can delete them by right-clicking and hit delete. This next icon is to select the end point of a line. The next one is a midpoint of the line. Those two you not use on a regular basis. But the other one here is a grid snap. This allows us to only draw lines along a grid, and also allows us to view a grid. So if I turn the grid snap on, I'll first have to hit this little down arrow to select my options. So I can draw a grid of every 100 feet. And if I check on Move Origin, when I say OK, it allows me to select where my starting point of my grid is going to be. So if I want my starting point of my grid to be on this lateral at the intersection of the main, as I click there, it readjusts my grid to right there. When I turn this grid snap on, it only allows me to draw lines at those grid points. So I can only go from one grid point to another grid point. This is a handy tool for when you want to draw nice straight square maps. I would recommend bringing the grid layer down, or the grid size down to something a little bit more of a working interval. So if you're putting your laterals every 100 feet, maybe putting the grid interval at 25 or 50 feet. So I'm going to cancel that line. To turn the grid snap off, you just hit turn the grid snap off like that. This horizontal button allows us to draw only horizontal lines. No matter what we do, it will only allow you to draw a horizontal line. And as you're drawing those lines, you'll notice the distance is down at the bottom right-hand side. I'll right-click and cancel that. The next one obviously is vertical, which allows me to only draw vertical lines. These tools are handy when you want to draw nice straight maps. But again, these are either north and south or east and west, no angles. Again, our pan tool and zooming functions are all the same. The final thing we'll be going over is creating a custom template for printing. So as we hit our Map Report button, which is the printer button, our print map will come up. At the down arrow at the very top, you can left click on Add Edit. And this Add Edit will bring up our template for our template that we can create and customize. So if I wanted to remove some of the icons on this template and make it larger and wider, I can go to Items. So if I want to remove the title line and the subtitle line, let's say we want to make this a landscape. So if I can choose landscape, I'll first hit Auto Layout, which will kind of roughly put all the icons in for me. Once that's done, I still might want to shrink it down or move things around. So I can grab an item and move it around. As I left-click the center of the item, it allows me to move them, but I also can resize boxes as well. So if I want to narrow this box up, if I put my cursor over one edge of it, it allows me to shrink them in. I can do the same for this here. Around the map, there's actually two boxes here. There's our map, and then there's our lines. So as I can move my map out, and then I can move my map border out as well. Once you've finished with this layout, we have to give it a name. And then we must record it, and we can select Done. If you hit Select Area before you print, it will give you the option to select the size that you want printed. So I can reshape this box, and it will print only that area. This is good for making your maps as large as possible. Once we finish doing that, you'll notice there's two printer buttons. The one is the original map report, but we want to click Print Selection, which will print up what we've just selected here. You'll see our preview come up, and you can view the entire map.